The massive space station called Harmony's Edge floated in the darkness between stars. It looked like a giant metal flower, with 12 arms reaching out in all directions. Each arm held docking bays for different alien ships. The station had been built for one purpose: to host meetings between the galaxy's most powerful species when they needed to talk instead of fight. Ambassador Lisa Carter stood at the window of her quarters, watching alien ships arrive. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and steady green eyes. Her black diplomatic uniform was clean and pressed. Behind her, 3 other humans prepared for the most important meeting of their lives. Commander Jake Murphy checked his weapon one more time. He was a big man with dark skin and careful eyes that never stopped watching for danger. His job was to keep the human team safe, but he knew his gun would be useless if things went really wrong. There were too many aliens and too few humans. Dr. Amy Brooks sat at a small table reading files about the alien species they would meet. She was young for a doctor, maybe 30 years old, with blonde hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She had studied alien biology for 10 years, but she had never been this close to so many different species at once. Her hand shook a little. As she turned the pages, Captain Ron Hayes stood by the door, talking quietly into his communication device. He was giving orders to his ship, the New Frontier, which waited nearby. Hayes was older than the others, maybe 50, with gray hair and lines around his eyes from years of space travel. He had brought the diplomatic team here and he would take them home when the meeting was over. The meeting was about something called Quantium-7. It was a rare metal found in only a few places in the galaxy. Without it, faster-than-light communication was impossible. The species that controlled Quantium-7 could talk to their people across the galaxy in seconds. The species that did not have it were stuck sending messages that took years to reach their destination. Humans needed Quantium-7 badly. Their colonies were spreading to new worlds every year. Without fast communication, the human government could not control its growing empire. Messages from Earth took months or years to reach the outer colonies. By the time orders arrived, the problems they were meant to solve had often gotten much worse. The aliens knew this. They had been watching human expansion for 20 years, ever since humans had developed faster-than-light travel. Most alien species thought humans were dangerous because they grew so fast and fought so much. But they also thought humans were young and stupid, easy to trick in negotiations. Lisa turned away from the window as a soft tone announced that the meeting would begin in 1 hour. She looked at her team and smiled. "Ready for this?" Jake nodded and put his weapon away. "As ready as we can be." Amy closed her files and stood up. "I've memorized everything we know about their cultures. I just hope it's enough." Ron finished his conversation and joined the group. "The ship is ready if we need to leave quickly, but let's hope it doesn't come to that." They walked together through the station's corridors. Other species were doing the same thing, heading toward the main meeting chamber. Lisa watched them carefully, noting their body language and the way they moved. The Zephyrians looked like giant insects walking on 2 legs. They clicked and buzzed as they talked to each other. Their leader, Trade Prince Clixtar, wore jewelry made of precious metals from dozens of worlds. He was known for being clever with money and ruthless in business deals. The Corvani were reptiles, the size of humans but much stronger. Their scales were dark green and their eyes were yellow with thin black pupils. War Speaker Thessalok led their group. He had scars on his arms from ritual combat, and he wore armor even to peaceful meetings. The Corvani believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. The strangest aliens were the Ethereal Collective. They looked like floating clouds, of blue light with darker spots that might have been eyes. They spoke by making musical sounds that their translators turned into words. Their representative was called Lumara, though Lisa was not sure if that was actually a name or just a title. There were other species too, bird-like creatures with bright feathers, rock beings that moved slowly but lived for thousands of years, fish-like aliens in mobile water tanks. All of them were older than humanity. All of them had been part of galactic politics for centuries. The meeting chamber was huge, with a round table in the center. Each species had its own section with chairs or platforms designed for their bodies. The humans sat together in simple chairs that looked plain compared to the elaborate seats of other species. Trade Prince Clickstar called the meeting to order, with a series of clicks and whistles. The translator system turned his words into basic, galactic standard language that everyone could understand. We gather here to decide the future of Quantium-7 mining in the Kepler 442 system, he announced. 12 species have claims to consider. We must find a solution that serves the greater good of galactic peace. Lisa knew this was not about peace. It was about money and power, but she smiled and nodded as if she believed every word. The first day of talks was gentle, almost friendly. Each species presented their needs and their offers. The humans asked for enough Quantium-7 to connect their colonies, offering to share their newest medical technology in return. Other species nodded and made polite sounds. Lisa noticed that several aliens exchanged looks when they thought the humans were not watching. Amy caught it too and made a small note on her data pad. Jake's hand moved closer to his weapon, though he did not draw it. As the day ended, Lisa felt like they were walking into a trap, but she kept smiling and shaking hands with alien representatives. Tomorrow, she knew, the real negotiations would begin. None of them realized that in 3 days, everything would change. The moment when humans went quiet was still ahead of them, and the galaxy was not prepared for what that silence would mean. The second day of negotiation started the same as the first. Lisa Carter sat at the human section of the table, her notebook ready and her smile in place. Jake Murphy stood behind her chair, watching the room. Amy Brooks had her files spread out and Ron Hayes monitored communications from their ship. But something felt different. The alien representatives were more confident today. They talked louder and laughed more often. Several times Lisa caught them looking at the human delegation with expressions that seemed almost amused. Trade Prince Clickstar began the session by reviewing what each species had offered the day before. When he reached the humans, his insect-like head tilted to one side. The human delegation offers medical technology for Quantium-7 access, he said. A generous proposal, but we must consider all factors. War Speaker Thessalok leaned forward, his yellow eyes fixed on Lisa. Medical technology is useful, but humans are new to galactic politics. Perhaps they do not understand the full value of what they request. Lisa kept her expression neutral. We understand the value of Quantium-7 very well. Our colonies need communication links to function properly. Of course, Thessalok replied, but colonies can be patient. They have survived without instant communication so far. Amy Brooks looked up from her notes. Our outer colonies face dangers that require quick coordination with Earth. Without fast communication, people could die. The ethereal representative, Lumara, made a sound like wind chimes. The translator converted it to words. Death is unfortunate but not uncommon in space. All species accept such risks when they expand too quickly. Lisa felt a cold feeling in her stomach. These aliens were not just negotiating. They were telling the humans that human lives did not matter much to them. The morning session continued with each species presenting detailed proposals. The bird-like Avarian Syndicate wanted Quantium-7 for their trade networks. The rock beings called the Terran Commonwealth needed it for their slow but vast mining operations. Even the smallest species had claims that sounded reasonable. When lunch break came, Lisa and her team went to their private meeting room. Jake closed the door and turned on a device that would prevent alien listening equipment from working. They're planning something, he said immediately. I can feel it, Amy nodded. The way they look at us has changed. Yesterday they seemed cautious. Today they act like they've already won. Ron checked his communication device. I've been monitoring alien ship movements. 3 more vessels arrived during the night. All military. Lisa sat down heavily. They're trying to intimidate us. Make us accept a bad deal because we're outnumbered. Will it work? Amy asked. Lisa thought for a moment. That depends on what they offer us. The afternoon session answered that question. Trade Prince Clickstar stood at the center of the table, his jewelry catching the light. He clicked and buzzed for attention. After much consideration, the established galactic powers have reached a consensus, he announced. We propose a fair distribution of Quantium-7 mining rights. He activated a holographic display showing the Kepler 442 system. Different colors marked areas assigned to different species. Lisa studied the map and felt her heart sink. The Zephyrian Trade Consortium will oversee 30% of mining operations. Clickstar continued. The Corvani Empire will control 25%, the Ethereal Collective 20%. The remaining species will share 23% among themselves. Lisa looked at the map again. What about humanity's allocation? Clickstar's head tilted again. Humans as newcomers to galactic society will receive 12%. This is quite generous for a species so new to interstellar politics. The number hit Lisa like a physical blow. 12% would barely cover basic communication needs for the core human worlds. It would leave the outer colonies cut off and defenseless. War speaker Thessalok stood up. Additionally, human colonies will provide security services for all mining operations. This will give humans valuable experience in galactic cooperation. Security services? Jake asked, his voice tight with anger. Military protection, Thessalok explained. Human ships will guard the mining stations. Human soldiers will defend against pirates and other threats. Amy looked at her calculations. You want us to provide military service for free while getting only 12% of the resources? Not for free, Clickstar corrected. For the privilege of participation. Consider it an investment in your species' future standing. Lumara's chimes sounded almost musical. This arrangement teaches humans their proper place in galactic hierarchy. Wisdom comes from accepting one's position. Lisa stared at the holographic display. The aliens were not just offering a bad deal. They were trying to turn humanity into their security force while giving humans almost nothing in return. It was a trap designed to keep humans weak and dependent. We need time to consider this proposal, she said carefully. Clickstar clicked approvingly. Of course, take all the time you need, but remember, this offer requires unanimous approval. If any major species objects, we must start negotiations over. The threat was clear. Accept this deal, or get nothing at all. Lisa stood up. We request a 30-minute recess to discuss these terms. Granted, Clickstar replied. The human delegation left the chamber together. In the corridor, Lisa could hear alien voices talking excitedly. Some were laughing. They thought they had won. In their private room, Jake turned on the blocking device. Again. For a moment, nobody spoke. They planned this from the beginning, Amy said finally. All that talk yesterday about fair negotiation was just theater. They want to make us their attack dogs, Jake added. Fight their battles while they get rich. Ron looked at his communication device. I should contact Earth. Let them know what's happening. Lisa held up her hand. Not yet. But we can't accept this deal, Amy protested. It would cripple human expansion. And we can't reject it outright, Lisa replied. They've made it clear that would mean getting nothing. She walked to the small window and looked out at the alien ships docked around the station. So many of them, so few humans. There has to be another option, she said quietly. Jake moved to stand beside her. What are you thinking? Lisa was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. It was still calm, still professional, but something cold had entered it. I'm thinking we need to stop reacting to their moves and start making our own. Amy looked up from her files. What does that mean? It means we go back in there and tell them we need more time to consider their generous offer. Lisa turned away from the window. And while they're celebrating their cleverness, we start playing a different game. The 30 minutes were almost up. They returned to the negotiation chamber where the aliens waited with barely concealed satisfaction. Lisa took her seat and folded her hands on the table. Thank you for your patience, she said. This is indeed a complex proposal that requires careful consideration. Clickstar leaned forward eagerly. And your initial thoughts? We appreciate the effort you've put into this arrangement, Lisa replied. We'll need additional time to fully evaluate all aspects. Something in her tone made War Speaker Thessaloc's eyes narrow, but Lisa's expression remained perfectly diplomatic. What none of the aliens noticed was that something fundamental had changed in the human delegation. The friendly warmth they had shown for 2 days was gone, replaced by professional courtesy that felt suddenly cold. The shift had begun. The third day of negotiations began quietly, too quietly. Ambassador Lisa Carter walked into the meeting chamber with her usual professional smile, but something was different. Her greeting to the other delegates was polite but brief. She sat down, opened her notebook, and waited without making small talk. Trade Prince Clickstar had grown used to Lisa's friendly questions about Zephyrian culture. Yesterday she had asked about his jewelry and the meaning of his clicking sounds. Today she simply nodded when he entered and said nothing more. Commander Jake Murphy stood in his usual position behind Lisa's chair, but his casual conversations with the alien security guards had stopped. When the Corvini warrior Vextol tried to discuss human military tactics, Jake gave short professional answers and then turned away. Dr. Amy Brooks had been the most talkative human for the first 2 days. She had peppered alien delegates with questions about their biology, their homeworlds, and their cultures. She had laughed at their jokes and shared stories about human customs. Today she sat with her files open taking notes, but she did not look up when aliens spoke to her. Captain Ron Hayes checked his communication device frequently, but he no longer shared updates about his ship or made friendly comments about space travel. When asked direct questions, he answered with the minimum words necessary. The change was subtle but unmistakable. The humans had not become rude or hostile. They remained perfectly polite and professional. But the warmth was gone. The curiosity was gone. The human delegates acted like people doing a job they no longer found interesting. War Speaker Thessaloc noticed it first. During the morning break, he approached Lisa at the refreshment station. Ambassador Carter, you seem distracted today, he said. I hope our proposal has not caused offense. Lisa looked at him with calm eyes. Not at all, War Speaker. We are simply focused on our evaluation process. Of course, Thessaloc replied. But yesterday you seemed more engaged. We take our responsibilities seriously, Lisa said. She poured herself a cup of coffee and walked away without another word. Thessaloc watched her go. Something cold crawled up his spine. In all his years of negotiation and warfare, he had learned to read opponents. Angry enemies were predictable. Desperate enemies made mistakes. But Lisa Carter was not angry or desperate. She was something much more dangerous. She was detached. The afternoon session made the change even more obvious. When Trade Prince Clickstar tried to joke about the complexity of galactic politics, the humans did not laugh. When Lumara shared what the translator called an amusing observation about different species' negotiation styles, Amy Brooks wrote it down but showed no reaction. Most unsettling of all, the humans stopped asking questions. For 2 days, they had wanted to know everything about alien cultures, trade routes, and political relationships. Now they sat in silence unless directly addressed. During another break, several alien delegates gathered in a side corridor. They kept their voices low, but their concern was obvious. Something has changed with the humans, clicked Clickstar. They no longer seem interested in learning about us. Perhaps they have accepted their position, suggested Vextol, the Corvani security chief. Maybe they realize they cannot fight the inevitable. Lumara's chime sounded worried. I cannot read their emotional resonance anymore. Yesterday their feelings were clear. Today there is only stillness. An Avarian delegate named Shriektal ruffled his bright feathers. Stillness can be more dangerous than anger. My people know this from hunting. What do you mean? Asked Clickstar. Prey animals make noise when they are afraid, Shriektal explained. They cry out, they struggle, they run. But predators go silent before they strike. They become perfectly still while they choose their moment. The words hung in the air like a threat none of them wanted to acknowledge. That evening, Trade Prince Clickstar tried a different approach. He invited Lisa to a private dinner, hoping to restore the friendly relationship they had seemed to build over the first 2 days. Lisa accepted the invitation politely. She arrived on time, sat down gracefully, and answered every question he asked. But it felt like talking to a different person. The woman who had shown genuine interest in Zephyrian history and culture was gone. In her place sat a professional, diplomat who gave correct but empty responses. "Your people have such fascinating expansion patterns," Clickstar tried. "Tell me, what drives humans to seek new worlds so aggressively?" "Humans value growth and opportunity," Lisa replied. "Yes, but what makes you different from other species? What is the source of your ambition?" "We believe in reaching our potential." Clickstar's frustration grew. Every answer was technically correct but revealed nothing. It was like trying to have a conversation with a computer. "Ambassador, have I done something to offend you?" he asked directly. Lisa looked at him with those calm, unreadable eyes. "Not at all, Trade Prince. Why do you ask?" "You seem different, less open than before." "I apologize if I have been unclear in any way," Lisa said. "Perhaps it would be best if we focused on the negotiations." After dinner, Clickstar returned to his quarters feeling deeply unsettled. He had expected Lisa to be angry about the proposed deal. He had prepared for human protests, demands, or even threats. What he had not prepared for was this complete emotional withdrawal. He activated his private communication system and sent an encrypted message to his intelligence network. Within hours, reports began arriving that made his mandibles click with worry. Human merchant ships throughout the galaxy had begun changing their routes. Human diplomatic missions to other species had suddenly become very quiet and formal. Human colonies were reducing their non-essential communications. Most disturbing of all, human military vessels were moving in patterns that intelligence analysts could not understand. It was as if the entire human species had received some kind of signal and simultaneously shifted into a different mode of operation. Meanwhile, in their quarters on Harmony's Edge, the human delegation worked late into the night. But they were not preparing responses to the alien proposal. Instead, they were making plans that none of the other species could have imagined. Jake Murphy updated security assessments based on 3 days of observation. Amy Brooks compiled detailed profiles of every alien delegate, noting their strengths, weaknesses, and behavioral patterns. Ron Hayes coordinated with human ships throughout the region, using coded transmissions that appeared to be routine status reports, and Lisa Carter sat at her desk, writing something that was not a diplomatic response or a counterproposal. It was a set of instructions that would soon travel to every human world in the galaxy. None of them spoke about what they were doing. There was no need. They all understood that the time for reaction had ended. The time for action was about to begin. In the corridor outside their quarters, an ethereal spy device tried to monitor their activities, but all it detected was silence. The humans had stopped talking, even to each other. They communicated now through looks, nods, and a shared understanding that required no words. The silence was spreading, and throughout the station, alien delegates were beginning to realize that they had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed that quiet humans were defeated humans. They were about to learn that quiet humans were the most dangerous humans of all. The 4th day brought panic. Trade Prince Clickstar had not slept well. His intelligence reports painted a picture that made his insect blood run cold. Human activity across the galaxy had changed in ways that defied explanation. It was not random. It was coordinated. And it had happened too quickly to be a reaction to the negotiations. He called an emergency meeting of the non-human delegates before the official session began. They gathered in a secure conference room, their usual confidence replaced by visible worry. "We have a problem," Clickstar announced without preamble. "The humans are not responding the way we expected." War Speaker Thessalok leaned forward. "Explain." Clickstar activated a holographic display showing human ship movements across known space. 3 days ago, human merchant vessels began altering their trade routes. Not randomly. They are avoiding systems where our species have strong influence. The display shifted to show communication patterns. Human diplomatic missions have reduced their contact with all non-human governments to essential matters only. Colony communications have dropped by 60%. Lamara's chimes sounded distressed. This suggests coordination on a species-wide level. But how could they organize so quickly? That is what frightens me, Clickstar replied. Either they planned this response before arriving here, or they have communication methods we do not understand. Shriktal ruffled his feathers nervously. Or they did not need to communicate at all. Some species share instinctive behaviors. When one member signals danger, all respond automatically. War Speaker Thessalok stood abruptly. I need to contact my military analysts. He left the room and returned 20 minutes later. His yellow eyes were wide with something close to fear. My people have reviewed human military history, he said. There is a pattern we missed. Humans become silent before major conflicts. It happened before their civil war, before both world wars, before their colonial independence movements. The silence is not submission, it is preparation. The room fell quiet. Every species present had studied human expansion, but they had focused on human aggression and growth patterns. None had paid attention to the warning signs that preceded human military action. Bextol, the Corvani security chief, spoke up. How long does this silence usually last? Anywhere from days to months, Thessalok replied. But it always ends the same way. With humans taking action, that changes everything. Lumara's energy form flickered with agitation. We should reconsider our proposal. Perhaps we have been too aggressive in our terms. It may be too late for that. Clickstar said grimly. If the humans are truly preparing for conflict, backing down now might be seen as weakness. It could encourage them to demand even more. An Avarian delegate named Velkak spoke for the first time. What if we are wrong? What if they are simply accepting their position and withdrawing from galactic politics? Thessalok shook his head. Humans do not withdraw. They have never withdrawn. Even when outnumbered, they fight. Even when they lose, they come back stronger. Withdrawal is not in their nature. The meeting broke up with no clear plan. Each species returned to their own emergency sessions, trying to understand what the humans might be planning. Meanwhile, the official negotiations continued. Lisa Carter sat at the human section of the table with the same professional calm she had shown for 2 days. When asked about their decision on the proposal, she gave the same answer. We are still evaluating all aspects of your offer. But now, the alien delegates were looking at her differently. They were no longer seeing a newcomer species trying to negotiate their first major deal. They were seeing something that scared them. During the lunch break, Dr. Amy Brooks was approached by several alien scientists who had been friendly with her on the first day. They tried to restart conversations about biology and culture, but Amy's responses were polite and brief. She answered their questions but asked none of her own. Dr. Brooks, said a Corvani biologist named Kethmar, I have been thinking about your questions from our first meeting, about human adaptation patterns. Would you like to discuss this further? Thank you, but I have other work to focus on, Amy replied. Kethmar persisted. You seemed very interested in how different species handle environmental stress. I brought some data that might interest you. Amy looked at him with the same calm expression all the humans now wore. I appreciate the offer, but it is not necessary. The dismissal was polite but final. Kethmar watched her walk away and realized that the curious, eager scientist he had met 3 days ago was gone. In her place was someone who no longer cared about learning from other species. The afternoon session was interrupted by an urgent message for War Speaker Thessalok. He read it quickly, and his scales darkened with alarm. I need to speak privately with the other delegation leaders, he announced. Lisa looked up from her notes. Is there a problem, War Speaker? Nothing that concerns the negotiations, Thessalok replied, but his voice was tight. The alien delegates left the chamber for an emergency conference. Lisa and her team remained at the table, writing in their notebooks as if nothing had happened. In the private meeting, Thessalok shared his news. 3 human dreadnoughts have been detected moving toward this system. They will arrive within 12 hours. The announcement hit like a physical blow. Dreadnoughts were the largest warships any species built. Most governments owned only a few. The fact that humans had sent 3 suggested they were taking the negotiations very seriously. Indeed. This could be routine escort duty, suggested Velcock hopefully. Human diplomatic vessels do not require dreadnought escorts, Clickstar replied. And if it were routine, they would have announced it. Lumara's chime sounded like broken glass. They are preparing for war. Or they want us to think they are, Thessalok said. The question is, what do we do about it? We could call for our own reinforcements, suggested Vextall. That would turn this station into a battlefield, Clickstar pointed out. And we still do not know what the humans actually want. Maybe we should ask them, said a quiet voice. Everyone turned to look at Shriektal, who had spoken. I mean it, the Avarian continued. We have been trying to guess human intentions for days. Why not simply ask Ambassador Carter what her people want? Because that shows weakness, Thessalok protested. Does it? Shriektal asked. Or does it show intelligence? We are clearly missing something important about human behavior. Maybe it is time to admit that and ask for clarification. The idea was terrifying to species that prided themselves on understanding their opponents. But as reports continued to arrive about human ship movements, defensive preparations, and communication blackouts, it became clear that they understood nothing about what humans were actually doing. When the negotiations resumed, Trade Prince Clickstar decided to take Shriektal's advice. Ambassador Carter, he said carefully, we have noticed some unusual activity in human space. Is there anything you would like to tell us about your people's intentions? Lisa looked at him with those calm, unreadable eyes. Our intentions remain the same as when we arrived, Trade Prince. We seek a fair agreement regarding Quantium 7 mining rights. And the movement of human warships toward this system? I am not aware of any unusual military movements, Lisa replied. Human space forces conduct routine operations throughout our territory. It was not technically a lie, but everyone in the room knew it was not the whole truth either. Clickstar tried again. Ambassador, if there are concerns we have not addressed, perhaps we could discuss them openly. Lisa closed her notebook and looked around the table at all the alien faces watching her. For a moment, something flickered in her expression. Not anger, not fear, but something that might have been disappointment. Thank you for the offer, Trade Prince, she said. But I believe we have discussed everything that needs to be discussed. The session ended early. As the delegates filed out, each alien species was thinking the same thing. They had started these negotiations believing they understood humans. Now they were beginning to realize they understood nothing at all. And somewhere, in space, 3 human dreadnoughts continued their silent approach to Harmony's edge. The 5th day changed everything. Ambassador Lisa Carter walked into the meeting chamber exactly on time. Her team followed behind her with the same professional calm they had shown for 3 days. But something was different. Lisa carried herself like someone who had made a decision. She did not sit down. Instead, she stood at the human section of the table and looked around at all the alien delegates. Before we continue, she said, I would like to address the assembled representatives. Trade Prince Clickstar clicked nervously. Of course, Ambassador. The floor is yours. Lisa moved to the center of the room. For the first time in days, she smiled. But it was not the warm, diplomatic smile she had worn during the first 2 days. It was something colder and more confident. Thank you all for your patience during our evaluation period, she began. We have carefully considered your proposal regarding Quantium 7 mining rights in the Kepler 442 system. War Speaker Thessalok leaned forward. And your decision? We decline your offer, Lisa said simply. The words fell into the chamber like stones into still water. Several aliens started to speak at once, but Lisa held up her hand. However, she continued, we would like to make a counter-proposal. She activated her own holographic display. The image that appeared made every alien in the room freeze. It was a detailed scan of the Kepler 442 system, but not the basic survey they had all been working from. This was a complete military and geological analysis showing mineral deposits, defensive positions, asteroid fields, and strategic locations that none of the other species had detected. "We propose a 30% allocation of mining rights to humanity," Lisa said calmly. "In exchange, we will provide shared defense services and technology exchange agreements with interested parties." Trade Prince Clickstar's mandibles clicked frantically. "This is impossible. You have no leverage to make such demands." Lisa looked at him with the same calm expression she had worn for days. "Don't we?" Captain Ron Hayes stepped forward. "Long-range sensors detected 3 human dreadnoughts entering the system 14 minutes ago. They should be visible on your displays now." Alien delegates rushed to check their instruments. The readings confirmed what Hayes had said. 3 massive warships hung in space at the edge of the system, their weapons powered down, but their presence unmistakable. "Furthermore," Hayes continued, "our deep space monitoring network has been tracking all non-human vessel movements in this region for the past week. We know the location, armament, and crew complement of every ship within 2 light-years of this station." Lamara's chimes sounded like breaking crystal. "Impossible. No species has that level of surveillance capability." Dr. Amy Brooks finally showed emotion. She smiled. "You're right. No single species does. But we haven't been working alone." She activated another display showing a star map. Dozens of systems were highlighted in blue, representing species that had not been invited to the negotiations. The Centauri Republic, the Free Worlds Alliance, the Independent Mining Consortium, the Outer Rim Colonies, and 6 other governments have been very interested in alternative mining partnerships, Amy explained. "It seems they feel somewhat excluded from galactic politics." The implications hit the alien delegates like a physical blow. The humans had spent the past week not just preparing for conflict, but building an alternative power structure with all the species that the established powers had ignored or dismissed. Commander Jake Murphy added his own revelation. "We've also been analyzing your communication patterns, supply lines, and military deployments. Your fleets are impressive, but they're designed for intimidation, not actual warfare. Most of your ships haven't seen real combat in decades." War Speaker. Thessalok's scales darkened with rage. "You dare threaten us?" "No threats," Lisa replied. "Just information. The same kind of information you've been gathering about us for 20 years. She walked back to the center of the room. "You see, while you were busy underestimating us, we were busy learning about you. Every trade negotiation, every diplomatic meeting, every cultural exchange was an opportunity to understand how you think, how you operate, and what you really want." Trade Prince Clickstar found his voice. You planned this from the beginning." "Not this exactly," Lisa admitted. "But we prepared for the possibility that established powers might try to limit human expansion. We learned from our own history. When someone tries to control you, you have 2 choices: submit or find another way." Amy Brooks closed her files and stood up. "Did you really think we would attend negotiations about our species' future without backup plans? Without allies? Without knowing exactly who we were dealing with?" The chamber fell silent. Every alien delegate was processing the same terrible realization. They had thought they were negotiating with desperate newcomers. Instead, they had been dealing with a species that had spent years preparing for this exact situation. Lumara's energy form flickered weakly. "What do you want from—" Exactly what we said from the beginning," Lisa replied. "A fair deal. 30% of Quantium-7 mining rights, shared defense responsibilities, and mutual technology exchange. The same kind of partnership you have with each other." "And if we refuse?" Thessalok asked. Ron Hayes answered. "Then we implement our alternative arrangements. Our new allies are quite eager to begin mining operations under human protection. The Kepler 442 system has more than enough resources for everyone who wants to participate." "You cannot simply ignore galactic law," Clickstar protested. "Galactic law is written by whom?" Lisa asked. "The 12 species represented here? What about the 47 species not represented? Do they have no say in galactic law? The question hung in the air like an accusation. For centuries, the major galactic powers had made decisions for everyone else. Now the humans were pointing out that most of the galaxy had never agreed to those decisions. Amy Brooks added, "Our legal analysis indicates that the Kepler 442 system was never officially claimed by any government. It was simply assumed that established powers would divide it among themselves. But assumption is not law." Jake Murphy checked his communication device. "The vote from our alternative coalition is unanimous. They support human mining rights and defense partnerships." Lisa looked around the table at the alien faces staring back at her. "So here's where we stand. You can accept our proposal and maintain the current galactic order with humans as equal partners. Or you can reject it and watch us build a new order with the species you've been ignoring." The silence that followed was deafening. Each alien delegate was calculating the same terrible equation. If they fought the humans, they would be fighting not just one species, but a coalition of dozens of governments that had been waiting for exactly this opportunity. If they accepted the human proposal, they would be admitting that a newcomer species had outmaneuvered them completely. Trade Prince Clickstar was the first to speak. We need time to consider this new information." "Of course," Lisa replied graciously, "but not too much time. Our alternative partners are eager to begin operations and we don't want to keep them waiting." War Speaker Thessalok stood up slowly. "How long have you been planning this?" Lisa considered the question. "Since the day we first met another species, in space. We knew eventually someone would try to limit our growth. We just didn't know when or how." She moved toward the door, her team following. "The beautiful thing about being underestimated is that no one watches what you're actually doing while they're busy dismissing you." At the door, she turned back. "Oh, and for future reference? When humans go quiet, it's not because we've given up. It's because we've stopped reacting to your moves and started making our own." The vote was taken 6 hours later. It was unanimous. The humans got their 30%. As the human delegation prepared to leave Harmony's Edge, Captain Hayes received a message from Earth. The news was already spreading throughout human space. Humanity had not just secured mining rights, they had announced themselves as a major galactic power. Lisa Carter stood at the window of their quarters, watching alien ships prepare to depart. Many of them were moving much more carefully than they had when they arrived. "Think they learned their lesson?" Jake asked. "Some of them," Lisa replied. "The smart ones will remember that silence doesn't mean surrender. The others will have to learn the hard way." Amy Brooks packed her files with satisfaction. "I can't wait to see their faces when they realize we've been planning our next 5 moves while they were still trying to understand this one." Ron Hayes checked his final communications. "The new coalition is already discussing joint exploration missions. I think we're going to be very busy." Lisa smiled, and for the first time in days it was genuinely warm. "Good. Humans don't like being bored." As their ship departed Harmony's Edge, a new phrase began spreading through galactic diplomatic circles. Human quiet became shorthand for the moment when everything changed, when the underestimated became the undefeatable, and when silence revealed itself to be the most dangerous sound in the galaxy. The terrifying moment when humans went quiet had ended. But the consequences were just beginning.